Welcome back to Rich Words Music, where today what we're doing is something slightly different. It's the end of 2021. It's been another challenging and tumultuous year with many ups and downs, but there's been a lot of guitar-based gear as well. And what I wanted to do today was look back at the best of it. And I've chosen a rather supreme guest to join me on this journey, and it's no other than Mr. Leigh Fuge.
Hey Rich, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's been a bit of a crazy year, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. So thanks for agreeing to talk about it again. I hope it's going to be therapeutic for both of us, cathartic maybe, to discuss what we've been doing. But I thought you would be great to come on and do this because you're a gear reviewer, so you have played probably way more guitar-based gear than me, for example, and many others who will be watching this video. But you're also still hungry because you've not been doing this 5 or 10 years. You're not jaded. You're still super motivated and excited about everything, aren't you?
The system hasn't broken me yet. No.
No. Exactly. So I first met Leigh, for anyone who is unfamiliar with our relationship up to this point, at 42 Gear Street 2, which happened in 2020, in August or September, at Henning Pauli's place. And since then, your channel has gone from strength to strength, hasn't it?
It's been pretty good, yeah. I've been very pleased with the reception of how the channel's gone, because obviously when we first met at the second Gear Street, I was sort of the new kid on the block. So it's been quite a good year for growth.
Yeah, you've done really well. I'm really happy to be watching and following you from afar and looking at all the gear that you're checking out. But this year started in a way that none of us would have wanted it to. We're normally all looking forward to the January Winter NAMM show in Anaheim in California, and I guess you were booked to go as well, but that couldn't happen. That's normally the place where all the exciting gear for the year is kind of previewed, at least. You were booked to come, right? And then it didn't happen.
I was, yeah. I booked everything, plane tickets, hotels, the lot. And then obviously COVID happened. So NAMM got postponed. So I moved all my bookings to this coming January. And then it got postponed again. So now I've moved my bookings to June. So who knows what's going to happen from here.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think it's going to happen in June. Like, everything that I've heard so far leads me to suspect that it will, but you never know. But we'll talk about that, I think, at the end of this video. Yeah. But yeah, so NAMM didn't happen last year, and basically nothing else did either. So Summer NAMM was cancelled too. The one event that did happen was 42 Gear Street, and we got to check out a lot of cool gear there, and I think we'll both talk a little bit about it. But what I really want to do today is just turn the floor open to you and hear about the best items that you've played this year. So it could be guitars, amps, pedals, accessories, plugins, acoustics, strings, whatever. So let's just start by talking about that. I mean, you've made a bunch of the videos this year. Let's start big. What's been the single best new item that you've played this year?
Wow. That's a really good question. Probably the one thing out of everything I've used this year that's probably made the most impact on me, in that it's a guitar that's now become one of my go-tos, is the Schecter Johnston model. I don't think it was launched this year. I think it might have been launched last year, or maybe the more affordable Diamond series came out this year, which is the one that I'm referring to. And yeah, since I got that guitar, it kind of completely changed my mind about Schecter as a brand, but also it's become one of my kind of go-to guitars for most videos as well. So that's probably the biggest out of all the cool stuff I've seen in 2021. I can't even remember what year it is anymore. 2021. That's probably been the single thing that's like, okay, that made a big impact on me.
So let me get this straight. Is that the more affordable Schecter version, or is that the super expensive luxury one, the more affordable one? The more affordable one, yeah.
Yeah, I think they retail at around about £800. So it's not a cheap instrument by any stretch, but it's the more affordable of the range. In that the other version of the guitar they do is like $3,000.
Yeah, but it compares with like current Mexican Fenders too, so it's quite affordable in the grand scheme of things. I've been looking quite a lot at those because they look like they're excellent value for money, and there is an HSS version, which I personally would probably go for if I was getting one. Which one did you get, and which colour did you get? Here we go. Oh, there it is. It's that one.
Bright pink.
Bright pink.
Because why not? I think Atomic Coral is the official colour name, but I mean, you know, it's a pink Strat. Roasted maple
It's a
neck.
beautiful colour. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, for £800, these are fantastic. I think they're Indonesian made, but it definitely outperforms the price point that it sits in, I think, in terms of playability and feel and everything. Like, I've been gigging this thing relentlessly over the summer, and it just sounds great all the time. Whatever you plug it into, it just works.
And the pickups are Schecter, right? So I guess designed in collaboration with Nick Johnston himself?
Yes, I believe they're like Nick's own voiced pickups. I'm not sure if they're the same as the ones on the full sort of custom shop version, but I know you can buy those pickups. So I guess maybe they are. Maybe they are the same. But you can buy them as like a Nick Johnston branded set too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're sort of like typical Stratty single coil pickups, but with a bit more kind of punch to them. So you can like use the bridge pickup and play rock with it, and it doesn't have that sort of super cutting sound that like a bridge single coil usually has.
Yeah. I'm really interested to try that guitar because I've not tried the cheaper one, but a couple of years ago I was at the GitCon event, another event started by Henning Pauli, but I think it was the second GitCon that Henning was no longer involved with, and Nick Johnston was there with the original Schecter demoing it, and obviously he made it sound phenomenal because he's an incredible musician, and those guitars were sensational. But I've not tried this version, and I would love to, and they come up quite often on the local eBay marketplace here, and the prices are good, so I'm tempted.
Yeah. Henning did a video not long ago where he compared the diamond one to the custom shop one, because he has the custom shop one in his studio, and even he said in the video there's not a huge difference between the two. The custom shop one is sort of like marginally better because obviously it's a $3,000 custom shop, but he said if you were pressed, it's not like night and day difference between the two.
Interesting. Well, definitely something for me to try. And also interesting is the fact that you mentioned how this has kind of given Schecter a different sort of reputation for you. For me personally, I also discovered a Schecter guitar this year, which was totally kind of left field for me. And I haven't played it. I haven't seen one in person because of COVID or whatever, they've been unavailable. And I contacted them and asked them, and they said summer next year, maybe. But it's basically a guitar called the Schecter PT Fastback 2. And I don't know if that rings any bells with you, but it's like a Tele Deluxe, 2 wide-range humbuckers with a Bigsby, like a vintage traditional style guitar. And it looks phenomenal. And it costs, I think, about 600, 700, 800 euros or pounds maybe. So well priced, probably made in the same place as those Nick Johnstons. And I would love to try one of those. They look great.
Yeah, I have seen it. I know the one you mean. I've tried a couple of their Indonesian ones this year. They seem to be going down this road now of more kind of classic leaning stuff, which for me as a player is right up my street. They seem to have really leaned into the 80s vibe, which I like, but also like things like the Nick Johnston, which is very much a Strat, but it's sort of tweaked a little bit to make it a bit more kind of suited for the more modern player, I suppose.
Yeah, I like that. There seem to be quite a few brands who are doing that. So it's like traditional looking instruments that also sound like, guitars that from days of yore, but they play like 21st century guitars. Yeah, that's it. And they hold up when you take them out and gig as well, because as much as everyone loves vintage Strats and vintage Teles, they're probably not the most suitable things to be slogging on the back of a van 3 or 4 nights a week, whereas something like that you can take it out and it's not going to break on you after 6 months, and it's not going to cost the same price as a house. Yeah, exactly. I'm always shocked when I'm in the day job, when I'm with Thomas Blug on the live stream, and he'll just he'll be throwing his 61 Strat around and he'll pass it to me and it might kind of almost fall over, and I'm like, this guitar costs more than you pay me a year. And but there you go.
Yeah. They're crazy.
Yeah, that's a cool first choice then. So I'll go ahead and tell you probably the electric guitar of mine, which was the best that I laid my hands on this year, and I got to play it very briefly at 42 Gear Street. It's more expensive than the Schecter, but it's not super expensive, and it is the Tonefox Elcaster. They weren't on the event, but it was a prototype guitar that was bought to Michiel, who was also at the event. And I think you played it too.
That.
You might have done. I've done a video on it, and it's kind of like it's a Telecaster thin line, although it doesn't have an F-hole. It has two P90s in it, rosewood board, old school blue sparkle telly, lovely guitar.
Why don't I remember seeing that? It sounds really nice. It sounds like a guitar I'd like, but I don't remember seeing it.
Possibly because it was under the radar, because they weren't actually exhibiting on the event. But that was the guitar that I've played, which I probably felt was the best this year. It just... Tonefox is the cheaper version of Tonefuchs, which is Uwe, the guy who owns its brand, and his normal Tonefuchs guitars cost $3 or $4 grand up, because they're totally custom. And with Tonefox, he wanted to build some slightly more affordable ones, so he's buying the bodies in from a Japanese maker and the necks as well. And he puts them together and fettles them and sets them up, and they're about $1,700, and they're supreme guitars.
Right.
Again, speaking about Henning's just done another video this week or last week with two new limited runs that Tonefox are doing. Again, kind of old school looking Telecasters. Super cool guitars. Right. I can only recommend them if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll have to check them out. I've tried some of the Tonefox guitars that Henning has, and those have always been great. So yeah, it would be interesting to try their sort of, dare I say, more affordable line, because obviously £1,700-1,800 it isn't super affordable, but compared to $4 grand, it's half price.
Yeah, it's all relative. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go a bit more affordable then. What about some other more affordable guitars that you've had this year that you like?
So the best affordable thing I've played this year is this. The new Harley Benton Fusion 3. This thing has, it's blown my mind. The fact that this is a £300 guitar is just crazy. Like, roasted maple neck, stainless steel frets, Wilkinson trem, it's got a coil split, lock and tuners. Like, this thing has been probably my favourite affordable guitar of the entire year. And dare I say, this plays not too dissimilar to the Nick Johnston, which is nearly 3 times the price. So they've done well with this. Whatever Benton are doing at the moment, they're on to something. Because again, I've taken this out for gigs as well, and it sounds great, it plays great, it holds up really well. So I think there's not going to be much longer that we're going to be talking about these guys as an affordable brand. I think we're going to see these guys go upwards with prices.
You reckon they're going to get more expensive?
I think so. I mean, if this is what they can do for £300, imagine if they started experimenting with £500, £600, and what they could achieve at those price points. Because these Bentons are Indonesian made as well, not Chinese made. And a lot of the other companies that are making those kind of great mid-price guitars like Schecter, Jackson, they're all making stuff out of Indonesia as well. So the craftsmanship is sort of comparable, but obviously they're cutting out the middleman because they're self-distributing them through Thomann.
Yeah. It's an interesting choice, and I can only agree with what you're saying about the quality thresholds that they're meeting and breaking at the moment. I personally don't think they will get that much more expensive, because I feel that they would actually need to rebrand if they were going to do that. But I do agree that when you look at specific price points, Harley Benton always seems to be at the very top. And actually, the second guitar that I would want to mention in this video is also a Harley Benton. It is the Aeolus, which you might have heard about. And that's kind of like, it's a cross between a 335 or a 339 and a Les Paul. So it's a 339 sized semi-hollow Les Paul effectively. It's similar sort of build quality to the Fusion that you have there, made in Indonesia, stainless steel frets. The ALS has the ALS has Tesla pickups, whereas I believe the Fusion has Roswell pickups.
Yes. Yeah, Roswell.
So that's one big difference, but it has a roasted maple neck, and that is €400. So I guess about £330 in your measurements new, and it's just, when you read those specifications on paper, if you didn't know what the guitar was, you would guess that the price point would be 2-3 times as much easily, or at least that's how I see it.
Yeah, it's the same as the stuff they're putting out now. Like, I mean, some of the brand new Bentons that have just dropped have all got Goto hardware, EMG pickups, and they're still like in that £300 to £400 price point. It's crazy.
It's mad, isn't it? But that's another reason why I reckon they won't do stuff that costs $800 or $900. I reckon they'll have to rebrand it slightly, because no matter how good they are, even if they lose the reputation as being a bargain bin brand, which they used to have, I feel like some people will still have an attitude towards it being the same brand, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
because the couple of times I've taken this out to gigs, people have asked me what the guitar is, and when I've said it's a Harley Benton, people have almost been surprised, like, oh, that's that budget brand. And it's like, well, not really anymore. They're sort of, they're sort of away from that a little bit now. Like, they're making guitars now that can compare with things that are twice the price. So yeah, this would definitely be my choice of best affordable guitar. And it's pink as well. So 2 pink guitars on either end of the spectrum.
Is that a shell pink, that Fusion, or is it another name?
It's sort of like a burgundy kind of pink, like a burgundy mist finish, but not metallic.
I think Harley Benton have also done really well with colour finishes recently, by the way. Some of their other guitars, recently they did an affordable Tele run, the TE62cc, one of which I have, the Lake Placid blue one, which I'm not ready to put into the best of year video, but I just thought I'd show it. But that's €149, so about £130, and that's Lake Placid blue. They did a shell pink one, they did a seafoam green one, and they did a charcoal frost one. So it's almost like they're looking at what younger players would want and saying, okay, instead of doing Fiesta red, black, and two-tone sunburst, we're going to go a little bit interesting and just, make some friends as well as a few enemies, I guess, with those choices.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're definitely onto something good there.
Yeah, I've been familiar with Harley Benton for quite some time, and the guitars that they're putting out now compared to the guitars that they were putting out 2-3 years ago, and then 5-10 years ago, they're light years apart. And I think what they're doing now is probably going to cause quite some concern among some other brands, maybe some more established brands that are at similar price points, who are starting to think, if we carry on like this, kind of building on brand name nostalgia and stuff, people are going to start going to Harley Benton instead.
Yeah, and I do think that people are kind of becoming a little bit more accepting of brands that aren't like the big five. Because I think for years, the big brands have always been sort of a benchmark of quality, but I don't think that's so much the case anymore. I think people are starting to see there are these other brands now. There are these boutique brands, or these brands that have kind of flown under the radar for years, like Schecter. Like, if I wanted a Strat, you'd always think, oh, I'll go to Fender. But now Schecter are in the game. And you think, okay, well, maybe they can offer me something. And again, Ibanez with, like, the AZ series, they're all kind of competing for that same kind of tonal market, which is interesting. So I think people are becoming a bit more accepting now of new brands or different brands, a bit more willing to go off the beaten track.
I know what you mean, because again, my day job is in guitar amps, and I see the parallel with tubes versus digital and modelers. 5-10 years ago, everybody would basically say, okay, modelers are all right, but tubes are the best thing. And nowadays, I think especially younger guitarists coming through, they don't care if an amp has tubes in it, if it's solid state, if it's digital, if it's a plug-in. If it sounds good and it connects to their computer and it does a good job, the technology is a moot point. And I think maybe we're going the same way with guitars. You might be after a Strat kind of guitar, but does it need to have Fender written on the headstock anymore? That's a I guess a question for a deeper video than this one, but
Yeah, it could be an interesting
But
video
I like
topic
it.
though.
it could
be
be.
an interesting
Maybe we'll do
video
that
topic.
next year. Yeah. Talking about the other brands though, the more established brands. Have you got any electric guitars this year that you tried from any of them that you would put on your best of 2021 list?
No, not really. I guess because a lot of the big established brands don't tend to work with many channels. They have sort of a few select people they work with, but I don't think we're going to be getting people like Gibson knocking the door anytime soon asking us to make videos.
That's a good point.
Fender I've just not had the chance to deal with yet. I've
Yeah.
done stuff for Fender's sort of sister brands like Jackson and Gretsch, but not Fender as a company yet. But yeah, I've not had a chance to get my hands on any of their products this year. But everything I've tried that handles that classic vibe from other companies has been very impressive. So it would be interesting to spend some time with some of the originals and see how they stack up.
Yeah. Any specific guitars that have come out this year that you haven't had the chance to play that you'd really like to try? Don't say the Acoustasonic.
Okay, I was going to say that because everyone's talked about it, and I feel like I'm probably the only person in the world who hasn't actually played one yet.
No, there's two of us. I haven't tried it
Okay.
either. But yeah.
So I'm kind of interested just to see what the fuss is all about. But yeah, that's probably the big one for me. Like, I'd like to try one just to see, not even necessarily to make a video, just to try one and see if everyone is telling the truth about them or if they're, yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to know with the Acoustasonics because when they first came out, and the first ones were already out at NAMM 2020 because I remember seeing the prototypes then, but there have been so many guitars sent to YouTubers kind of almost seemingly at random that it's sort of like, well, who is buying these in the real world? And I'm still yet to meet another guitar player in the real world who owns one and plays one who hasn't, been given one. So I'm really interested to see how good they are. And I think in particular, I'm excited to try the Mexican, more affordable ones that are coming out next year. So that should be good.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how the Mexican one stacks up against the full fat one as well, because from what I gathered, the only difference, obviously other than the fact one is Mexican made, is that it's one of the sort of the body pickups is not there anymore, the sort of the contact pickup.
Yeah.
But other than that, I guess the sounds would be predominantly the same. The circuitry is probably more or less the same. So I don't imagine there would be like a night and day difference between the two models.
No, I would imagine not. I know, they do have a few kind of lesser options in terms of tonalities, but in terms of the overall concept, it's going to be the same thing. And if you get a decent setup, it's probably going to be very close. So that could be interesting, especially for someone like you who's gigging a lot in cover bands, has recently done Panto, Run, for example. You need a lot of tones. So
yes,
the Acoustasonic could be a good one for you. There's just one more guitar that I want to put on my list, and I happen to have it here. And that is one which really surprised me. It's the vintage V100 WR. And it might just look like another Les Paul clone, but it has Wilkinson mini humbuckers in it. And that's the real reason why I wanted to mention it. I have never had a mini humbucker equipped guitar before. I've tested one before for the channel, a Tonefox actually, and it was amazing. But the guys from Music Vine, who are the distributors for vintage, sent me this one to try, and it is awesome. I really love those pickups. Are you familiar with mini humbuckers?
No, do you know what? It's a type of pickup I don't think I've ever tried. I've pretty much tried every other type of pickup other than a mini humbucker, I think.
That's the thing. That's what I was saying in the video.
Vintage, though.
Yeah, it's like they deserve a lot more love than they have. Because for me, having spent a lot of time with this one now, they sort of have most of the advantages of a single coil and most of the advantages of a full-sized humbucker, but none of the disadvantages, so they don't hum like a single coil would. They don't get muddy like a humbucker might, but they do kind of bright, biting clarity like a single coil, and they're tighter than a humbucker. So it's like they're super cool pickups, and they sit in a mix really, really well. They're just They're awesome. And this guitar is not brand new as a model, but it's like new specs for 2021. Vintage have put rosewood boards back on, and they've put Grover tuners on them and stuff, and that guitar really surprised me. So
yeah, they're another company though, like Harley Benton, that I think for years have kind of flown under the radar as this company that just do cheap copies of other guitars. But some of the stuff that Vintage are actually putting out is fantastic. I did some videos about 18 months ago now on some of their 25th anniversary models, and they were fantastic instruments, and they were like sort of £500 a piece. Really good guitars.
Were they the Silverburst ones?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Three of them.
yeah, I remember that, yeah.
A Strat, a Tele, and Les Paul. But they've since done another 3. I think they've got like an SG, and 2 other shapes which I can't remember. Maybe like a P bass or something, and another thing. Yeah,
Vintage are doing really well. You know, I'm sure I've told you this, but I worked for JHS, the company who owns them, between 2010 and 2013, and I think I've pretty much played every Vintage model which is out there, apart from a couple of newer ones which they've done since. And the guitars that they were building back then, compared to the guitars that they're building now, again, it's like the quality is, just going up and up. It's a great time to be a guitar player and buying cheaper guitars, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but let's move on now from guitars to effects pedals and talk about the best of those that you've played this year. The best effects pedals that you've played this year are?
I've done lots of pedals this year. That has probably been the biggest amount of videos I've made this year have been about pedals. Yeah, it's a tough one. There's been a few standouts. The Wampler Belle, that's been... I haven't actually published my video for this yet at the time of recording this, but I'm currently in the middle of editing the video, so probably by the new year this video will be online. But I've been using this for the last 4 or 5 months now, like for gigs, for everything, even other demos, and this is a fantastic drive pedal. I actually first tried this when we did our video together at Gear Street, where we built a mini rig. That was the first time I tried the Belle properly, and yeah, since then I've literally been obsessed with it. So that's very high up the list of favourites for the year.
Very cool, and that is a Wampler take on the Nobels ODR1 overdrive, isn't it?
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, I'll put a link down in the description for anyone who wants to watch the video that Leigh just talked about, which is... Yeah, at 42 Gear Street, we put together a rig which would be perfect for someone playing in a covers band just like Leigh's, and we tried to do it on a budget and failed miserably because there wasn't a lot of cheap gear at 42 Gear Street. But yeah, you used the Belle for some of the bass kind of almost, no, not your always on overdrive tone, but a bit of extra beef to add to your clon type sound, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, we definitely failed the budget aspect of that video, but it was a good rig, though. We put together a good rig. It wasn't a cheap rig, but it was a good rig.
Yeah, it sounded great, and now you've got that drive. I'm really interested to try that one as well, because I've got the Nobels ODR Mini, which is really good, but the Wampler stuff always seems to have a bit of an extra kind of, almost like a hi-fi sheen it adds on top of the tone. Like a smoother, like more polite edge to the tone.
Another good... competitor in the ODR world, which I got this year, was Leigh Fuge did one called the STO, the Super Terrific Overdrive it stands for. That is sort of like an ODR one, but with, again, a few little sort of Leigh Fuge electronic style tweaks. The Belle is slightly more versatile because Brian Wampler added the bass control, so you can tweak the low end more, and it's got 2 different clipping stages. But the STO is a great alternative to the ODR thing as well. So there's a couple of different... Again, I think that the ODR, is becoming the new Tube Screamer. I think people have done the Tube Screamer thing to death, and I think people are now looking to the ODR, because it is kind of Tube Screamer-ish, but without the mid-bump. It does that same sort of gain range and the same sort of tone, but without the overly prominent mids. So I think that's going to be the circuit people talk about for the next the next sort of 18 months.
You could well be right. I mean, that pedal's, it's been around for quite a long time, and it flew under the radar for a lot of the years that it was out. But in the past couple of years, you've seen people start to talk about it as the Nashville player's secret weapon, the country session pros secret that they add to every recording, because it's kind of treated as a transparent overdrive as well, isn't it? But it adds extra sparkle to a Telecaster tone for country rock records. Yeah, exactly. And you've seen players like, I think Pete Thorne, I've forgotten his name. Who's the other guy, the Nashville guy? I've got totally blank. Tim Pierce. He's not even a Nashville guy. But Tim Pierce is the one who talks about the ODR one a lot. And I'm all for it. I love mine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great circuit. You're right in saying that it's kind of become known as a transparent overdrive. I mentioned that in the demo that I'm in the middle of editing for it, in that it's not really transparent if you can hear it when it's on. I think the true definition of a transparent drive is something that does nothing at all. So obviously if it does something to your tone, it's not really transparent, but it's as good as it gets in terms of it doesn't completely change the sound. It retains as much character as it can from everything, I think, which is interesting. Like if you play single coils through it, it still sounds like single coils, and then if you put humbuckers through it, it does kind of take on that characteristic. So yeah, it's definitely a versatile pedal. Yeah,
and we're also starting to see people build that into the boutique two-sided drive pedals as well. So it's, I think, the Protein drive by Brown Amplification, which has an ODR one side, and I think we're going to start seeing more and more sort of boutique versions of that pedal made, which cost considerably more than the original cost as well. But there we go. That's how it works.
That's it, isn't it? That's it.
Yeah. So I see your Wampler and I raise you this one. I mean, this is the Pantheon, and I'm mentioning a pedal here which I haven't actually played and is not the Pantheon, but it's the Pantheon Deluxe, which was released a week or two ago and is Wampler's take on the King of Tone, effectively, because this is effectively two Bluesbreaker pedals in one box, and that's a transparent overdrive. At least that's what marketing hype on the internet likes to call a transparent overdrive. Are you familiar with the Pantheon?
I'm familiar with it in that I've heard it and I've seen other people play it. I've not tried one myself, but I'm very interested in trying the new Pantheon Deluxe. But that circuit in general, I'm very familiar with, because I've got one of the vintage Marshall Bluesbreakers.
Oh yeah.
And I also have a King of Tone, so I'm familiar with that sound, but I've not tried Wampler's take on that sound yet.
What is it about the King of Tone which for you makes it worth 4 years on a waiting list and all that money?
Instagram likes. No, I can't even say that. I can't even say that because it doesn't really get many likes. For me, it was just one of those pedals that I always loved the Bluesbreaker sound. And I guess when I joined the King of Tone waiting list, there wasn't really another good Bluesbreaker out there. So I sort of had the vintage one, and I loved it so much that I was taking it to gigs. But I was like, well, this pedal, is like 30-something years old. I don't really want to be gigging it every week. And for me, the King of Tone was like, okay, I can get something that's Bluesbreaker-ish, but it'll be a bit more robust. And then by the time other things like the Pantheon had started drip feeding into the scene, I'd already been on the King of Tone waiting list for like 18 months. So I thought, well, I might as well just stick it out. I've waited this long, I might as well just commit. I think I ended up being on the list about 3 years all in to get mine. I got it before the last boom. So I got mine... Actually, mine arrived a week after the first lockdown at the start of 2020. So that's when I got mine. And then from that point on, because they had to halt production because of COVID, the waiting list went up to like 4 years plus. I think I was on it just over 3. But my name had come up 6 months before, but I just didn't have the money at that point. So I sort of waited, I guess, 2.5 years for my name to come up.
Oh, right.
Now I think
so
it's like... Now
it is about 4 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think they're currently fulfilling orders from summer 2017, and I joined the list at the tail end of 2016. So it took me like 3 and a bit years from ordering to actually getting it in my hand. But now the list has only moved on like 6 months in 18 months of real time because of the backlogs and whatnot.
Yeah, I need to check where I am because I've been on the list since I think, mid to late 2017. So
you're probably nearly there now.
I'm probably near the top. Exciting times. So I'll have to be choosing my King of Tone at some point. Looking forward to those Instagram likes.
Yeah, you might get one from me.
Who knows?
It is. I joke, but it is a great pedal. It is like a really good drive pedal. Is it worth 4 years' wait? That's sort of subjective, because there are other things that do that sound. But it is a good pedal, and it does sound great. And whatever rig you put it into, it kind of works. When you figure out how to dial it in, it's not as forgiving as something like a Tube Screamer. Like if you just chuck a TS9 in any rig, it just works. But the King of Tone, you sort of have to find your sound with. It's a little bit more not tweakable, because there's not a huge amount of options, but you do have to kind of find where it sits in your rig before you really get the most out of it, I think.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The other sad reality of the King of Tone is I know that if I buy it and I don't get on with it, I can sell it immediately and cover my costs. I won't lose money on it. I'm not the kind of person who would ever buy something to flip it, because you also see people doing that. They'll buy it one day, you'll see it the next week for twice the price. But if you get one of those, you're not ever going to lose your money on it. So I'll stay on that list.
That's it. And at the moment, the resale value has gone crazy at the moment, because for a long time they were sort of, I think the King of Tone costs, I think it's like $230 or whatever, but the shipping is really expensive because you have to get insured shipping. Mine cost me just over £300 all in, plus I think I paid like 40 quid customs import fee, because yay Brexit. So for me for me it was probably the most expensive pedal I've ever bought, but at that point they were reselling for like $450. So it's like, okay, if I don't like it, I can make 100 quid on it. But now the resale is like $650 plus. So you can essentially double your money now if you ever want to move one on.
It's like,
because people will pay to avoid the waiting list.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, so if you're prepared to make that 4-year investment, your quid's in, get your name on the list now, get one in 2027, you're wealthy. You're a wealthy guitar player.
I've even seen people talking on Facebook groups about how they've joined the waiting list and bought one at resale value, and then when they get theirs, they'll sell the one they bought for the current resale value. So let's say like you pay $600 for one, and you wait 4 years and you get another one, you might then be able to sell one of them for £800. So you've made your money back and you've essentially got a free King of Tone. That seems to be the current way of thinking. People are almost paying more to have one now while they wait, with the aim of selling it in the future, providing the prices keep going up. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. At some point they will stop, but crazy, isn't it? And I mean, we've seen original clones sell for $5,000 this year. Yeah. So the sky is basically the limit with those, which is pure madness, but internet hype, that's what it does to you. That's it. That's exactly it. Let's try and go down to the slightly more affordable end of the pedal spectrum. Anything slightly cheaper that you've played this year that you really like and would recommend people check out?
Actually, on the King of Tone vibe, the NUX Ace of Tone. That is half Bluesbreaker, half Tube Screamer. What a great pedal. That is like probably around the £100 mark. I don't know exactly what they retail for, but NUX are fairly affordable. That's a great dual drive pedal for anyone who's looking for that kind of King of Tone vibe, but without waiting 4 years.
Yeah, the Ace of Tone is a great pedal. I've had one in and done a video on it as well. I love the Bluesbreaker side. I found the Tube Screamer side a tiny little bit high gainy for me in some contexts, because I normally like it as just like a pushed clean. I'll have my Tube Screamer volume up full, gain down on nothing. But there was one aspect of the Ace of Tone, which for me meant that it's probably not that valid as a gigging piece of equipment, and that's that when you engage the pedal, when you press down the foot switch, you get a dip in volume, and it's like there's about a quarter of a second where you lose signal and it doesn't switch during that time. So it's like if you really want to get between the two tones quickly, then it's not really an option. So that was for me a slight downside. I mean, for me personally, with the Bluesbreaker side, that's something I could have on all the time, so that no problem in that context. But yeah, I found that a little bit frustrating, and I talked about that in the video that I did. Try yours again, see if you notice it. Could be just me, but I don't think it is, because I noticed some other people have talked about it too.
NUX also do one of their mini pedals. I think it's called the Morning Star. That's like their Bluesbreaker. Yeah. And I think those are like £70. You could buy two of those, and that's a king of tone right there. Two Bluesbreakers side by side. Yeah. And that's a great circuit as well.
I would consider that, actually, because I really love the tones on that Bluesbreaker side. Have you seen the new Joyo pedal, the King of Kings, which is also a King of Tone ripoff? Sorry, homage.
I haven't seen that, no.
Another one to try out.
I'll have to look for that, though.
But with the Joyo one, it's a similar case to the NUX Ace of Tone. It's kind of like they're out there, but you don't really find them in standard music stores. Yeah. I've never seen one in a shop, so I don't really know what the availability is like on them, and I guess that the COVID pandemic has had big implications on their shipping and availability and stuff like that.
Yeah, more than likely.
Yeah. Any other pedals?
Especially to Europe.
Yeah, exactly. Any other pedals on your list?
Oh, tons. The Walrus ACS1, that's been a great find this year for when I'm doing gigs with a small board. That's been a fantastic kind of direct to PA. I don't know whether we'd class this as a pedal, but this has been a bit of a game changer as well. I'm going to have to drop that one in there.
Never heard of that. What's that?
Yeah. It's by some company. I don't know whether it counts as an amp or a pedal, but this has been a bit of a mainstay on my pedal board for most of the year as well, because I can take an amp with me and it's only this big. I don't know whether we'd class that as a pedal or an amp, though.
It's an amp.
But yeah, amp.
Thomas will be very angry if I tell him anything otherwise. It's an amp.
But it lives on a pedal board.
Yeah.
This year for me has been a great year for pedals, though. Like, just finding so many cool things. Like, all the Walrus stuff I've tried this year. I found my new favourite Octave Fuzz, courtesy of Chris Jupiter.
Yeah.
This thing is just nuts. It's such a cool sounding Octave Fuzz, and it's, it rusts in real time when you touch it. That's how cool it is. What else have I tried this year that's been really cool? I tried a pedal from Leigh Fuge at the start of the year that was pretty cool. I don't have it, but because I only had it on loan. But it was a Joe Bonamassa signature drive, which was called the Penny Royale, I think it was called.
Uh-huh.
And that was really cool because it was like a Tube Screamer ODR style drive one side, and then like a Leslie style chorusy thing the other side. So that was really cool because you could sort of do that Leslie speaker kind of thing with the drive pedal. So that was pretty fun as well.
Interesting. I've never seen that one anywhere, so I'd quite like to try that out. But it's been hard really this year to see stuff because music stores have not been open in the same way, It's been really difficult to find things.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I guess that was the good thing that we had at Gear Street, is that we did get to see a lot of stuff kind of up close and personal for the first time probably since the previous Gear Street.
Yeah, exactly, since the last one. That's been the only event that's run. Yeah, it's crazy. The other pedal on my list, just looking down, is one which I haven't played, one which was released fairly recently, and it is the JHS Packrat pedal. I'm a huge fan of Rat pedals now. I only fairly recently bought my first Rat 2 and love it, and I've got about 5 or 6 different Rat pedals now. The JHS Packrat seems to have 8 or 9 different Rats in it. I know it's going to sound great. It's fairly expensive for a Rat type pedal, but it's, you know, for a Rat connoisseur, it's got everything in it. Is that something that floats your boat, or is it not your kind of gain?
It's never been I've not quite found my thing with the Rat yet. I've tried a few different variations on it, including the original style, and also Stuart Tate of Tate FX makes one called the Siren Scream, and that's kind of his take on the Rat with 3 different clip-in diodes, and it sounds great, but it's not the kind of drive that I gravitate towards. Like, for me, I would probably use it more as an effect rather than a drive sound. So, like, if I wanted to do, like, a guitar solo or a riff with that particular sound, but as, like, a go-to drive, it's not the sort of thing I would lean on.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, for me, it's a drive that I can do that with, but I have the distortion knob basically at about 8 o'clock. So it's almost not on, because, you know, once you go past 10 or 11 o'clock, it becomes uncontrollable for me. It just doesn't work for the kind of stuff I do. But for anything under that, I love it. It's such a thick sound. It is kind of unique, but for me, it's an amazing pedal. And with that Packrat one, I would just spend days and days just going through the different sounds, checking out the different types of clipping, the different styles of pedals that they're modeling in an analog way. And I mean, in a sense,
I'm guessing it's the same as the Bonsai then. The Bonsai was the Tube Screamer equivalent, where they basically just built in the circuit so you could switch between like 9 different classic or modded Tube Screamers. I'm guessing that's the same with the Rat one, in that there's X amount of different classic mods to the Rat, and you can just select between those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the Bonsai was their take on the Tube Screamer. The Muffuletta was their take on the Big Muff, and the Packrat is their take on the Rat. And it's all done analog, and it has many different versions of classic Rat pedals. I mean, the only downside of that pedal for me, well, there's 2 actually. The first one is price. They're not cheap, of course. And the second one is that once you've found the one that you really like, you're probably going to stick with that. So it's, in a way, probably the best possible pedal for someone who wants to get their first flavour of what a Rat sounds like. And, you know, kind of move on from there. But if you love a certain Rat tone, you probably don't need it, you know, because it offers 8 different sounds that you might not use.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess it would be the same as buying the JHS Bonsai, which is sort of, I guess it's like 200 plus. I think they're sort of like maybe 250-ish. I haven't really checked the price in a while. And then just leaving it on like a TS9 setting, you know, where you could buy a TS9 for 80 quid in the UK. Sort of the same concept, isn't it? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, you can get a Proco Rat 2 for about 80 euros here in Europe, and the Packrat is, I think, 280 or 290 euros, so about 250 pounds. So not a cheap way into it, but still, it's kind of, it's on my wish list should the option ever become a reality. So that's cool. Yeah. Let's move from pedals towards amplifiers. Have you tried any new amplifiers in 2021 that you have come to own or would like to come to own?
So yeah, this year's actually been quite strange for amps. I've not actually tried many new amps this year. Probably the last amp I acquired was the Blue Guitar Amp 1. But yeah, this year I think the only other amp I've really spent any sort of time with was any of the stuff at Hennings. There's a couple of things there that I'd like to maybe get a bit more time to try out, like the ENGL, the ENGL Ironball SE, the new ENGL that was there.
Yeah. It's hard to point into a camera, but it's down there.
Yeah, I want one of those, because again, kind of like Schecter surprised me this year, that ENGL really surprised me as well, in that you kind of enter into the preconception with a brand sometimes of this is what they're good for. But I plugged a Maybach Strat into it, and I was just like, wow, that's great. It wasn't metal at all, which kind of talked to me. So yeah, I'd like to try one of those a little bit more. And some of the Red 7 stuff I tried briefly at Hennings was very good as well. Again, same thing, you kind of think, oh, it's high gain, but when you start to tweak it, you find all these different kind of tones in there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, for me personally, ENGL was always a brand which I associated 100% with heavy metal and contemporary metal, which is not the kind of music I play 99% of the time. But when I first got the chance to try the Ironball Special Edition, which is down there now, it does so much more than that, and it has so much modern day connectivity. It's like you've got a built-in IR loader, you can put your own IRs in, you can connect it straight to your recording software. It makes it super easy to do anything.
Yeah.
And the clean channel loves to get dirty, but there is a really nice pristine clean too. It's a really nice amplifier. I'm really enjoying using it, and I'm surprised that I'm enjoying it as well.
Yeah, that's been one of my favourite things, not just about this year, but the last 2 years in general, has really opened my eyes a lot to brands that I always thought did a specific thing. Because I remember going back to Gay Street 2 when we first met, you were still working for Hughes and Kettner. And I still remember the conversation we had where you were asking me what kind of amps I like. And I said I like single channel, low wattage valve amps that have a single volume, a single tone, like as simple as it gets. And you somehow convinced me to get a Black Spirit 200, which I absolutely love. And it's the complete opposite to any amp that I would ever consider buying. And now I use it all the time. And it's like, how did you do that? But as soon as I guess it's the same for anyone. Once you try these things, you realise, oh, actually, maybe they can do more than they're pigeonholed into doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of brands definitely suffer from that, and especially with amplifiers, it's the case of getting the chance to sit down and try something. You know, I think you got the chance to try the Black Spirit amp in person and get an explanation from someone who worked for the brand as well, because they're quite complex. You know, if you like a simple one-channel tube amp and you're suddenly, you know, face to face with a 4-channel amplifier that has built-in effects and there's MIDI and there's knobs that have double functions, you can make that sound real bad real fast. But if you get kind of a face-to-face bit of guidance on it from someone who knows how to use it, that can change your mind completely. So again, with the Red 7 amps that you mentioned, I also thought that would not be something that would work for me, but they sound great. And they're more versatile than you would give them credit for just by looking at them, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. What I found, something that's kind of really appealed to me as a player, is looking at these amps that can do high gain, like ENGL, like Hughes and Kettner, like Red 7, and there's like an additional like tightness that those amps have that things like a vintage Marshall or Fender style amp don't have. And when you play in certain styles of music, even though that amp isn't designed for that style of music as a sort of a, you know, a ballpark tone, the fact they've got that extra tightness is really interesting because it kind of changes the way it feels. Like I was using the Black Spirit 200 for loads of funk gigs, and it's so tight, like, and it's perfect for that kind of music. But when you see Hughes and Kettner, you just think, well, just crank the gain and play heavy stuff. But I was using it on the clean channel, and it's just super, super tight and very precise. So it's interesting because you kind of find a dual purpose for these things. And I guess the ENGL will probably be the same. It'd probably be great for that kind of stuff, even though you're probably not going to see too many funk bands with ENGLs. You could, in theory.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. I mean, the brand image thing. I totally agree with you. No one is ever going to use an ENGL to play a funk gig or a reggae show or whatever, but you can get those kind of tones out of that amp if you sit with it and just dial it in. And it's not that hard to do either. I'd be really interested to watch a video of you doing your thing on the Ironball, so you need to get that sorted.
Yeah, I do want to get my hands on one too, because I did a video at Gear Street with Trey, and it was a lot of fun, but I'd like to just sit down and spend an hour with it and dial it in and get a feel for it in my own setup as well. Because obviously that's the thing with Gear Street, is that you don't get a chance to really sit with a product and hear it in your own environment as well. Like, I know what my room sounds like. I know what IRs I'm using with my captor. I know what my speakers sound like, you know. Things always sound different at home, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the disadvantages of a show like 42GS, you're not in your own comfort space. So it
Yeah.
it always is beneficial to get a piece of gear, take it home with you afterwards, and spend time learning it from your own perspective.
Yeah.
One last little thing about amplifiers. You just mentioned that you did a video with Trey at 42 Gear Street about the ENGL.
Yeah.
The other amplifiers that were there, which a lot of people played, which I played, were the Boutique Amp Distribution mini heads. And I would like to give kind of an honourable mention to the Friedman BE mini head, because that's another one that I had preconceptions about, having played the pedal, and it was too much for me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a classic rock and indie wimp, and the BE amp and the BE pedal were just too much drive for me. But I did a video with Perfecto de Castro where he used one of the Friedman sort of super strats and got some sort of pushed breaking up clean tones from that amp that sounded amazing. Are you familiar with those amps at all, and what did you think of them?
The only one I've tried, I actually posted a video on a couple of days ago, is this one. And this is actually the one that I thought, that will not be an amp that I will enjoy. But I thought, you know what, I'll do a video on it, it'll be fun. This thing sounds amazing. I was so into how this sounded. And I mentioned that in the video. I actually got a clean tone out of it. So there's not many people who can get a clean tone out of a Dietzel, because this is pretty much just gain. It only has a gain channel. But yeah, these mini amps are great. They sound really cool. I didn't get to try the Friedman one, but I'm meant to be doing a video soon on the Bogner one. So hopefully that will materialize in the next... It's on its way, so when it arrives, I'll shoot it. But that one's really cool, the Dietzel. That's a really fun amp.
Very cool. I really enjoyed the Bogner. I did a video on that one with Henning and Victor. And I did a video on the Dietzel with Trey.
Right.
Because I thought there is no way I'm going to be able to do justice to that Dietzel amp myself. So Trey brought in the most ridiculous Ibanez 7-string baritone. And I think we might have slightly overloaded the amp because it was not a tight metal response that we were getting from it. You should watch the video because I think it sounds like polar opposites to what you managed to get out of it. I'm going to go away and watch yours, and it sounds like you maybe got from the amp what you're supposed to get from it, because I'm not sure that we did. But that amp surprised me too. You know, it's all about preconceptions, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know if I got from it what it was supposed to, because I approached it from like an 80s rock point of view. So I used one of my old Kramers, plugged into that, and just got a bunch of sort of cool 80s rock and metal tones, which I thought sounded great. It can do the metal thing, but because I don't really play like the super heavy stuff, I don't really try to play it on video because, you know, I want to retain some credibility for myself. So I don't want to spoil people's enjoyment of my videos by watching me try and play on a 7-string. Even though I did do that with Trey in the ENGL video. He got me to try and play a 7-string. And it was it was an experience. I was completely out of my comfort zone.
That's what Trey does. He comes onto your videos and he takes you out of the comfort zone. But yeah,
he's great. He's great for doing that.
He is. Yeah, I love Trey. Yeah, and he's a super knowledgeable guy as well. We had him on the Cat Pick Fridays podcast that we do, and he told us all about songwriting from his perspective, which he's majorly got into on the Gear Gods channel in recent years. And yeah, super knowledgeable guy. Really, really interesting. Really intelligent. And yeah, I love Trey. Very cool.
He's great. He's so much fun to be around, and he's just so relaxed and at ease on camera, which is cool. Like when you're in a video with him, he's just so easy to bounce off.
I found that as well. Super cool guy. Yeah. Alrighty. So we've done guitars, we've done amps, we've done pedals. What else have you tried this year that you'd put on your best gear of 2021 list?
Not really a pedal. This thing. A real spring reverb unit.
Oh, cool.
So this has become a mainstay in my rig since I tried this out. It's a company from... The company are from Italy, but the items, I believe, are made in Sweden. The company's called Surfy Industries. So this particular one is a model of, I can't remember the exact model number, but you know those old big Fender spring reverb tanks that sit on top of amps? It's basically one of those, but instead of it being tube driven, like the real ones are, it's got a JFET in it instead. So it's sort of like a solid state power amp instead of a tube preamp, but it's essentially the same thing. So yeah, I don't really know what category this would fall into, because it's not really a pedal, because you just leave it on top of your amp, but it is reverb. So this is probably my favourite non-pedal effect that I've tried this year. And this has pretty much been in it, unless I'm using like a digital amp, this is pretty much in every video I use now. If I'm using a real amp, I'm getting my reverb from this.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So where did you come across that in the first place then? How did you find out about it?
I just sort of stumbled across the brand, really, and because I was looking for a real spring reverb for a long time, just kind of scouring eBay looking for ones come up cheap, and I found these guys, and I just reached out to them and just, you know, said, should we do some videos? And I did a bunch of videos for this and a bunch of other products they do, but this one I basically said, I like this so much that I don't think I'm gonna be able to give it back to you. So we came to an agreement. So and now this lives with me. But yeah, this is great. If you like reverbs, this is fantastic. And the only negative thing this has brought to me is that since I got this, a digital spring reverb doesn't cut it anymore. Once you hear a real spring reverb, a digital emulation of one will never sound as good.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is it that makes that better than the best digital version of it?
It's a feel thing. It's kind of like the thing with playing like a valve amp versus a solid state or a digital amp, in that if you play like a digital reverb, what happens is your guitar tone just goes into the reverb and you get this recreation of the digital reverb sound. But because that goes in front of your amp, if you hit the guitar harder, you get more reverb, because the reverb unit is processing, or not processing per se because it's analog, but there's a dynamic thing there. It's affecting how the guitar goes into the amp. So if you put like a boost pedal on, it hits the reverb tank harder, which gives you more reverb. So it dynamically interacts with your guitar as well, which a digital one doesn't do. A digital one just says, here's your signal, here's some reverb. But that reacts to what you put into it, which is fascinating.
Yeah. And would you say that you've never yet played another digital reverb that matches up to that? You know, even something like a high-end Strymon or whatever high-end boutique brand, none of it matches up to the real deal.
Yeah, especially for spring reverb. Obviously, digital's great for all the other different types of reverb, but a digital spring is nothing like a real spring. And I realized that as soon as I got that, I was like, okay, I see this now. I can see where this is going. Because I tried it up against, not on video, just for my own enjoyment. On the Line 6 Helix, there's a digital model of the Fender reverb tank that's based on. It's not even a comparison. The Fender one just does not sound like a spring reverb compared to the real thing.
Yeah.
If you hear the digital one on its own, it sounds great. But as soon as you hear the real thing, it's like, okay, then the digital one doesn't sound good.
Yeah, okay. Interested. I'm going to have to try something like this out. My favourite spring reverb is in the Source Audio Collider that I have, the delay reverb dual pedal. And the spring reverbs that Source Audio do, the algorithms are, well, they're the best that I've heard, personally.
Okay.
So it will be really interesting to see how that matches up, and probably I'll come to the same opinion as you at the end of the day.
Yeah, the real thing's just interesting. It's a different experience.
Are they expensive, the real things?
These guys do a couple of different variations. So this one is the most authentic to the vintage one, and I think these are like 300-ish, maybe a little bit more, which is a lot for reverb. But if you're looking for a specific type of reverb, then it's sort of...
Yeah, I mean, if you want the real thing. And,
Yeah.
you know, there are digital reverb pedals that cost way more than that, you know. They might have
Yeah.
more options, but if you want that one spring reverb, that's the real deal. I guess the other question I would have is, have you ever had any kind of issues with reliability or the stability of that unit? Can the springs get damaged or anything, or?
In the year or so, or well, no, less than, I got it this maybe at the start of the year, maybe in the spring. In the 9 months I've had it, no. I've not taken it out to gig, but it does come with like a padded gig bag as well. So they've obviously thought about people that might want to use it.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, like anything, the springs could wear down over time. But I know like the guys that make them, they sell like replacements for everything. So if anything was to go wrong, you could easily replace it. They also do some other versions of this which are smaller and more pedal board friendly. This just happens to be like the big one, which is the most like the vintage one. The other ones are slightly different in that they use like smaller reverb tanks or whatever, but they still sound great. All the range sounded great, but this was just my favourite one.
Yeah, and I take it that comes with like a small foot switch that you stick down on the floor, right? Or is it always on?
It's an optional foot switch. I just run it always on.
Okay.
So it doesn't come with a foot switch, but I don't think they're that expensive. I think it's pretty much just any sort of standard latching on and off foot switch. But I just leave this on all the time on top of my amp, so that my signal just always passes through this. And if I ever don't want to use it, I just set the mix control to dry, because you can blend between fully wet and fully dry, or somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, very cool. I'm going to have to watch your videos about this, and you're probably going to end up costing me money at some point. So your job is done.
You won't regret it. They're good.
Looking forward to it. Again, like I wish that there were dealers around here, or you know, music stores that were open where we could go and try this stuff in person. But yeah, hopefully next year.
I don't even know how big of a dealer network these guys have got. I know they distribute through Thomann, but I know they do a lot of stuff direct as well, because a lot of their sales you could just buy stuff on their website. So yeah, I don't think they have like a huge dealer network, because I think they're still a relatively small company. But but what they do is, like, the guy that builds them plays surf guitar, so he is obsessed with the original sound of the proper Fender ones, which is where that kind of came from, in that he basically wanted to recreate that without it costing $2,000.
That's cool. Surfy is the brand, you said?
Surfy Industries.
Surfy Industries. I shall have to go and check them out at my earliest convenience. So thanks for the tip.
All their products are surf themed, so they do like tremolos which sound like the old like Fender brownface and blackface amps, like vintage style spring reverbs, like anything surf guitarists use, they pretty much do in a product.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I should be checking them out. Besides what we've talked about, is there anything else that you would want to bring to our attention? Could be anything. Or are those the main things that you played this year where you thought this is worthy of my end of year list?
Yeah, those are probably my favourite items. Obviously, another thing that's cropped up in a lot of videos that we haven't talked about is PJD Guitars, because I don't have one, and I don't think you have one, but we both want one.
That is true. Yeah, PJD Guitars were kind of the breakout stars for me at Headings 42 Gear Street, and I shot a great video with Krenar and Jens from PJD, which I still haven't released, which is getting released soon, where we got to know this brand, and you've since visited them in the UK and seen their headquarters and had interviews with them and stuff, but they make amazing instruments, and I really can't wait to, like we said, get one here in my own environment and kind of discover it in my own time, sort of thing. That's a great choice to add to the list.
Yeah, they're a fantastic company. I wish I had one here to show on camera, but I need to work on that. They're great though.
Me too.
Like, they make everything in their factory as well. I went up to see them a couple of months ago, and Leigh, the owner, gave me like a tour of the factory, which is on my channel somewhere, and he just talked about like they literally everything is done in-house. The wood comes in as a block of wood and it leaves as a complete guitar. The only thing
Yeah.
they don't do in-house is wind pickups and make hardware. But everything else, from the carving to the fretwork to the painting, is all done in-house by their team.
Yeah, it's amazing and really impressive how they've just kind of almost come out of nowhere the past year or two. Really, really impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, really looking forward to seeing more from that brand. And fingers crossed, early in 2022, Jens will give me a call and there might be a guitar for me to check out at some point. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
So, all this said, has there been an item that you've also been looking at that you would like to have, money no object, that you've seen this year? We already mentioned the Acoustasonic, but is there one bucket list instrument or accessory or some piece of equipment that you saw this year where you thought, if I ever win the lottery or have platinum selling records, I would get that?
That's a tough one, isn't it? I think probably the main guitar that I would love to own would be a PRS Silver Sky, because that's the one thing that's kind of constantly evaded me just because it's not cheap.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably top of my to buy list, I would say. Like, if I just had the money today, that's probably what I would go out and buy.
That is a really interesting choice. And that leads me into my final question, because I think we might potentially see an SE version of the Silver Sky in 2022. And if we do,
my bank account is already upset with me.
Yeah, exactly. But that could spell difficult times for Fender, because that is going to be the cat among the proverbial pigeons if that comes out. But that aside, what else have you kind of got your eye on that you think might be coming out in 2022?
Do you know what? I've not actually looked too far forward for 2022, so I'm not actually sure what brands are sort of planned yet. I've been so busy over the last few weeks that I've not actually had a chance to sort of think about what might be coming in the next few months. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, but I'm not sure what the answer would be.
It's funny as well, because I don't think brands are doing things the way they normally would have done things. You know, traditionally January is when most new products get released. And I feel like we've seen a lot of brands very recently, in November and even December, releasing new products, which probably would have been released in January for the NAMM show.
Yes.
But because there's no NAMM show, they've done it now, hopefully with the idea that people will buy stuff for Christmas. I guess.
Yeah, because no one's hinting like they usually do at this point. So usually by this point of year, you might see a few hints and you might think, okay, this could be quite cool. There could be something coming here. But yeah, it's sort of, nothing has sort of been hinted at yet. I mean, I know a few things that are coming out next year, which I think will be big sellers, but they're things I can't say on camera. But I can maybe tell you after the cameras stop rolling. Things that you kind of think, okay, that will be a big seller, but they're products that haven't been announced yet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one to speak about, I guess. But yeah, from my side as well, I know of a couple of things that are coming out that I can't speak about or even hint about. There's a couple of things that I could hint about. For example, I know that, you know, Boutique Amp Distribution, the guys who make the mini heads, have said there's more to come. And I don't think we're allowed to say what's coming up next, but you can look at the brands that they have and kind of imagine what might be coming and get excited, because I think they're going to do some pretty cool stuff next year. Yeah, and
I know which one is coming, but again, you can't say. But various conversations at Gear Street, we know what is coming.
Yeah, it's going to be
a good one. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and for me personally, the day job is Blue Guitar, and we have the Amp X coming out in June. I'm not going to speak loads about it on this video, but that is an amp that Thomas originally showed at the NAMM show in 2020, and it's taken until summer 2022 to actually get that released, you know, partly because of development and delivery issues with parts and chips and stuff due to the COVID pandemic. So if it happens, the NAMM show in June next year, it is going to be, I think, a bumper show for new releases. It's going to be really exciting. And for people like you, full-time gear YouTubers, you're going to have a field day. I think it's going to be awesome. Hopefully. I'm really hoping it goes ahead, because everything's booked, everything's paid for, so it's just, come on. We just need the go-ahead now. Our fingers crossed. I'll be so disappointed if it doesn't. So disappointed.
it's just nice to catch up with everyone as well. I'm just looking forward to going just to sort of like see everyone that I know from all around the world. Like obviously you, Andy, Henning, all the guys at the different brands I know, but also just to kind of meet people who I only speak to on the phone or only speak to via email, because I know obviously there'll be tons of brands there that I've dealt with but I've not met in person yet. So it's great for that as well. So I'm just looking forward to getting out there just to hang out with everyone as well.
It's the networking and the seeing people. That's like one of the coolest parts of it. Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah. But anyway, thank you, Leigh, so much for taking the time to have this chat, which has gone on a little longer than we both thought. But hey, I guess there was a lot of nice gear that came out this year, so that's cool. Been great to speak about. I will go through this again before I release it and put links to everything that you've spoken about, to your videos and to your channel. So if you're not familiar with Leigh and you're still watching, go and sub to his channel, check out the videos he's done and enjoy his tasty playing and his dulcet Welsh tones. And I'm looking forward to maybe a few more collaborations in 2022 and meeting in person at some point. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, we've got to get together and do more videos next year in person, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. I'm very much looking forward to it. So thanks again, everyone, for watching. Links are down below. But that's been it for today. I've been Rich for Rich Words Music, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.